The Cipher of the Ancients. Chapter 7: The Final Dip. I trudged back to my office, each step heavier than the last, the pieces of the ethereal apple weighing me down like lead. The night was a cloak of despair, the moon mocking me with its cold, indifferent light. I turned the corner to my building, and there it was, my door, or what was left of it, torn off its hinges like some giant had decided to use it as a toothpick. The landlord was gonna have a fit. This was the third time this month. I stepped over the wreckage, the wood splintered across the floor like bones in a butcher shop, and made my way inside. The place was a mess, papers scattered, furniture overturned, but my eyes were drawn to the table in the center of the room. There, amidst the chaos, lay a single note, its edges sharp against the backdrop of destruction. I picked it up, the paper crisp, the ink black and bold, like the crow it represented. It read, "Elradar Moonwhisper, you've stolen what's rightfully mine. The treasure you hold, the ethereal apple, bring it to me tonight at midnight in the Grove of Shadows. If you want to see your partner again, alive and well, you'll comply. The Magpie." The words hit me like a sucker punch to the gut. The Magpie, that cunning, shadow-clad bastard, was calling the shots now, with Ella as his pawn. My heart raced, not with fear, but with a burning fury. This wasn't just about the apple anymore. It was about Ella, about redemption, about outsmarting a man who thought he had all the cards. I slumped into my chair, the only piece of furniture still standing, and let the weight of the situation settle. The Grove of Shadows, part of Shadow University, was no place for the faint-hearted. It was where they trained the city's spies, assassins, and those who lived by the creed of silence. The place was a maze of dark magic and darker intentions, where every shadow could be an enemy. I glanced at the clock. Time was slipping away, each tick a reminder of the deadline. I need every ounce of my cunning, every trick in my arcane kit to pull this off. The Magpie wasn't just asking for the apple, he was setting a trap. I could feel it in my bones. But Ella was in there somewhere, and I'd be damned if I let him keep her. I pulled out the pieces of the apple, laying them on the table, their glow casting eerie shadows on the walls. This was more than just an artifact. It was our lifeline, our way to rewrite the odds. But the Magpie didn't know about the seeds, the true power of the apple. That was my ace, hidden up my sleeve. I practiced my sleight of hand, the seeds moving from the apple to my pocket with a dexterity born from years of thievery and magic. If I could just keep this from him, we might walk away from this, might just see another dawn. I stood, gathering the apple pieces, my resolve hardening like the metal in my blade. The night was young, and I had preparations to make. I'd walk into the Grove of Shadows, but I'd walk out with Ella, or I wouldn't walk out at all. Shadow University wasn't your typical school. It was an institution for those who thrived in the dark, where the curriculum was as much about the silence of a blade as it was about the whisper of magic. Here, they taught the arts of stealth, espionage, poison, and intelligence, skills that made the difference between ruling the shadows and being swallowed by them. I approached the university's gates, not through the main entrance, which was always under watch, but through a lesser-known path, a smuggler's alley that led to the back of the campus. Even the air felt different here, charged with the potential of unseen threats. The walls of the university were high, covered in ivy that seemed to watch you with 1,000 eyes, each leaf a potential spy. The Grove of Shadows was at the heart of this place, a sacred ground where only the most skilled or the most foolish dared to tread. It was a natural labyrinth, where ancient trees twisted into canopies so thick they blotted out the stars, creating a perpetual twilight. The ground was soft with years of fallen leaves, muffling footsteps to a whisper, and the air was thick with the scent of pine and the magic of silence. This grove wasn't just a place, it was a test. Students of Shadow University would navigate its paths blindfolded, learning to trust their other senses, to feel the magic in the air, to hear the silent language of the shadows. It was said that the grove itself judged those who entered, its trees and shadows shifting to aid or hinder, depending on one's intent. I knew these paths, had once been a student here, or close enough, learning from those who had no official title but were masters of the night. The grove was a place where your every move was observed, Your every breath could be your last if you weren't careful. Magic lingered here, old and potent, the kind that could cloak you or reveal you, depending on how you played the game. I arrived just before the witching hour, the air cool and laden with the scent of night-blooming flowers, the kind that only opened to reveal their secrets under the cloak of darkness. I moved with the grace of a shadow, my steps silent on the leaf-strewn path, the first piece of the apple in my hand casting just enough light to guide me without betraying my position. I chose my spot carefully, where the shadows were thickest, where I could watch the grove's entrance without being seen. I cloaked myself in an illusion, blending into the environment, my heart beating a steady rhythm of anticipation. The grove was alive with magic, the trees seemed to lean in, listening, waiting. Midnight struck, and with it, the magpie made his entrance. The air shifted, a cold wind cutting through the grove like a knife, signaling his arrival. He emerged from the darkness as if he were part of it, his silhouette a darker shade of night, his presence like a chill down your spine. His eyes, sharp and gleaming, scanned the grove, looking for any sign of deceit or ambush. He was alone, or so it seemed, but I knew better. The crows were there, hidden in the shadows, their presence felt rather than seen. They were his silent sentinels, his eyes and ears. The magpie's voice, when it came, was smooth, almost soothing, but with an edge that could cut. "Eldar Moonwhisper, I knew you'd come," he called out, his voice echoing slightly in the stillness of the grove. "I have what you want, and you have something that belongs to me." His words were a taunt, a challenge, but I remained silent, my position unknown to him. I watched him, every move, every breath, waiting for the moment to reveal myself. The tension was palpable, the night holding its breath, every shadow around us an ally or an enemy. The magpie began to pace, his steps confident, his hands clasped behind his back, a predator in his element. "Show yourself, Moonwhisper, or your friend here will learn the hard way about the price of betrayal." Then, from behind him, they brought her out. Ella, bound but standing tall, her eyes beaming with a silent promise of resilience. My heart clenched, but my resolve hardened. This was the moment, the game was afoot, and I was ready to play. I stepped from the shadows, the apple pieces in my hand, their glow casting an eerie light on the grove. The magpie's smirk was one of triumph, but I saw the flicker of caution in his eyes. Ella was there, her gaze locking with mine, giving me the strength I needed. "I see you've decided to be reasonable," the magpie said, his voice dripping with condescension. He motioned to his crows, and they brought Ella forward, her steps measured, her eyes never leaving mine. I walked towards him, each step echoing in the quiet of the grove, the apple pieces held out before me. The magpie inspected them, his fingers tracing the edges, his greed palpable. But I knew his mind was on the power, not on the details. As I handed over the apple, I performed my sleight of hand. The seeds, the true essence of the apple's power, slipped from the piece into my palm, then into my pocket with practiced ease. It was a moment of high stakes, my breath held, my heart pounding under the illusion of calm. The magpie, convinced he had secured his prize, nodded, his smirk growing. "Now for your part of the deal," he said, signaling for Ella's release. The crows stepped back, and she walked towards me, each step a victory, each moment a test of whether this was the end or just another beginning. I watched him closely, ready for any sign of betrayal, but my focus was split between him and Ella. As she reached me, our hands touched, a silent communication of relief and readiness. This was the moment of truth, where the tension could snap like a bowstring, where every shadow could turn against us if the magpie sensed the deception. The magpie, with the apple in his grasp, wore a grin that could only come from believing you've outsmarted everyone. "With that, our transaction for the apple is complete," he declared, his voice carrying through the grove like a final judgment. He gave a mocking bow, the kind that said, "I've won, and you know it." Then, as he turned to depart, he threw over his shoulder, "But you owe the crows a blood debt which they intend to collect." The words were barely out of his mouth when the shadows around us came alive. The crows, no longer hidden, surged forward, their eyes glinting with malice, their movements swift and silent. They were not just after the apple, They were after blood, after revenge. Ella and I didn't hesitate. I kept the apple seeds hidden, not wanting to give away our ruse. Instead, I relied upon my tricksy ways that manipulated the shadows, making us blend into the night, our forms shifting like the darkness around us. Ella, quick on her feet, summoned a whirlwind of leaves and dust, obscuring the vision of the crows. A crow lunged at me, his blade aimed for my heart, but with the shadow magic, I was a ghost, stepping aside as he passed through where I had been. I struck back with a spell, a burst of light that disoriented him, sending him crashing into his allies. Ella was already in motion, her spells creating illusions, making it seem like we were many more. We fought, not with the full might of the apple but with cunning and stealth. We moved with the precision of dancers, every step, every spell calculated to create distance, to confuse, to escape. A crow managed to get close, his dagger slicing through the air. I caught it with a shield of force, the impact jarring but effective, sending him sprawling back. Ella, with her agility, dodged another's attack, her counterspell a brilliant spray of light in a cone that blinded and dazed our foes. We were gaining ground, our knowledge of this place giving us an edge. With a final burst of magic, I cast a spell of silence around us, our footsteps becoming whispers in the night, our escape now a game of stealth rather than speed. We found a lesser-known path, one I had used in my darker days, leading us out of the grove's heart and into the night. We looked back at the grove of shadows, its dark form a reminder of what we just escaped, then turned towards the fetid streets of Arcania, knowing this was not the end but a new beginning in our ongoing war with the magpie and his crows. I really needed to choose another line of work.